Hi, I'm Alanna Ubach, and you are listening to You Might Know Her From with Damien and Ann.
Damien, I was obsessed with the fact that I finished Harvey Fierstein's autobiography this week, and there were so many goodies to be found. I can't recommend this book highly enough for those of you. I mean, it hits a lot of points, like queer history, New York City history, the Warhol era, La Mama, underground alternative theater, Jewish history. Like, there's just a lot to be had. He has lived such a life. I also forgot that, like, Harvey Fierstein doctored the book for the Funny Girl revival that's happening right now, plus the Wiz Live, which he was like, right. Kenny Leon, I am not black. And Kenny Leon was like, you're the person for the job. And he was like, okay. So he, like, adapted the Wiz Live. So I feel like he's like a script doctor, which I forgot. But there was just so many goodies, and I sent Damien a voice memo of this moment where it was revealed that he had been in a 5-year relationship with Bruce Bibby, journalist, a.k.a. gossip columnist, who was very important to us, Ted Casablanca from E! Online.
The Awful Truth. He used to say The Awful Truth. That was the name of his show, and he used to say it like through a clenched smile, and I was obsessed with it.
It's like one of the shared points of interest of Damien and I, that we were both obsessed with this show on E! In the 90s, because Ted Casablanca was like speaking directly to us. I didn't even know until I was like 25 that was not his real name, and that is, of course, a reference 25. To the gay character.
I knew it like
the gay character
ago.
In Valley of the Dolls. I did not know that.
I don't know that I've ever put that together, honestly. I didn't know his real name was Bruce Bibby until years ago, and then when you sent me that little piece of info, I was like, Bruce Bibby, I know that name. Who is that? And then I Googled it, and I screamed. And then I sent it to my brother, cool. Because I always, as a kid, Ted Casablanca was like in my arsenal of celebrity impersonation, so I needed him to know. It included Julia Sweeney as Pat, Bob Vila, Urkel, and Ted Casablanca.
Wait, what was your Bob Vila? Give me your Bob Vila.
It was like, I'm Bob Vila. Would you like me to? No, I don't know. I don't remember it. It was really me just saying my name was Bob Vila. Anyway, yeah, that you've sold me. I was actually just thinking last night, because I watched him and Matthew Broderick were on Watch What Happens Live together, and he was talking about Ethel Merman telling him that Torch Song Trilogy was a piece of shit, and it made me laugh. And I was like, well, I think this is a book for me, because I feel like it sort of scratches those parts of like celebrity behind the scenes like gossip that I like, but also he is like a super smart person who's sort of unabashedly, or maybe had no choice but to be his very gay self forever. So I feel like I want to read about his experiences, like coming up in the theater and being gay in the 80s in New York City and all of that. There's also this incredible interview with other hot topic of this podcast, Barbara Walters, from like 1983, 84, from around the era of Torch Song, where she's on the set of the Broadway production, I believe. And she's like, what is it like to be a homosexual? And he's like, what is it like to be a heterosexual? Like, his answers are so sharp and so good and so relevant, and pushes back on Barbara so well. And I had found that clip as I was like reading, and then he talks about that interview in the book. So anyway, I highly recommend it. I did the audiobook, and it was very fun to listen to him read, and it scratched all of my itches, and it was very fun. And it made me even maybe want to see Newsies, which I think is the biggest reveal of all. It's like, I will see Newsies at some point to see what Harvey Fierstein did to the book, because I appreciate it. Newsies is a blind spot for me. It's not a movie that I grew up with, so I didn't care about. Like, I feel like if there's a totally different version of the world where I would have gone to see that show, even if I knew it was bad, because I cared about the movie so much, but it just wasn't a movie I grew up with, and I didn't care.
Same.
Do you remember the first time that you saw or heard Harvey Fierstein? Like, do you know what it was? Because I feel like it was such a specific memory for me, because his voice is so memorable, and also he's very gay. So I feel like it's like two things burned in my brain.
100%. The thing that like jumped out at me was him turning Robin Williams around in Mrs. Doubtfire for the Barbara Streisand reveal. Yes, for the matchmaker reveal, and then for the Barbara Streisand. It's like, it was such a clear moment in that film of being like, who is that? This person works with latex and gets all of my references. I was obsessed with him in that role, in that character. And it's just like, it does jump out at me. I mean, that's the first time I had clocked who he was.
Folks, welcome back. Good morning. It's before 8 a.m. here, basically. This is You Might Know Her From.
With Damien and Ann.
I am Damien.
I'm Ann. And as you probably know, that we don't usually record this early, so we are firing on some cylinders. we have a lot of strange energy this morning. But, there's been a lot happening in the last couple of months, but here we are at our season finale of season 4. We're at 124 episodes, which is kind of outrageous. And I feel like we've just had like a really stacked lineup this season. So if you're new to the show, welcome. If you're an original OG listener, thank you so much for sticking with us for this long. We've gone through COVID together. I am just on the other side of having it. My lungs are still a little clogged, but I'm doing the best that I can. So thank you for staying with us. We are going on hiatus for the summer, and then we will be dropping a few little gems for you over the course of the next couple months. So make sure that you stay subscribed, that you're following us on social media so you know when we drop those episodes. But we will be back for you full time in the fall. But, we're just trying to take a little break on these weary bones because COVID era has been rough on all of us.
So if you are new to the show, this is our podcast where me and Anne, longtime friends, collaborators, pop culture aficionados, kids that were obsessed with Harvey Fierstein, putting Robin Williams in essentially a latex mask molded to his face. I was obsessed with the mold. Where we talk about all of the things, all of our mind grapes that we have been cultivating since we were young kids up until, we're going to say, if you listen to last week's episode, we sort of stopped cultivating those grapes around the age of like 26 maybe. That's being generous. Where we just sort of talk about all the pop culture things that are going on or that are not going on, but that we are still interested in, that we are just discovering. And then, of course, we sandwich in between. The meat of it all is an interview with a brilliant woman or non-binary actor. So that is what we do here on this show. I feel sad that it's the season finale, but also kind of excited for a little bit of a break to recharge, regroup, restore my juices and come back.
Rejuvenate.
Yeah, rejuvenate. But yeah, here we are. Here we on the other end of it. I remember being like kind of sad when season finales would happen of TV shows when I was younger. The shows that I cared about,
Correct.
I also like to remember not knowing, like understanding, like this is not interesting or cool, but like not understanding like how syndication works. So like why some shows just like were always on and there was never like Saved by the Bell, I guess, was on Saturday mornings, but also was on in syndication, which is where I discovered it.
Correct.
This is not interesting, but it's just like it never had a season finale.
No, but it's like that's why I've seen every single episode of the Brady Bunch multiple times because it was just like always on somewhere. And I feel grateful for that education because I think that it's like, we were talking about this recently, like what is going to last? And, we talk about a lot of pop culture here, but like specifically much of it is like queer pop culture, like we cover a lot of bases. But to me, the Brady Bunch always felt like very gay. And I don't know why that is, but like my friends that were in school that later came out as gay also were very interested in the Brady Bunch. And I don't know what that is, if it's like the kitsch of the like blended family and like 3 boys and 3 girls, if it was the costumes, if it was the music, like all of it. But the show was oddly important to me, even though like neither one of us obviously grew up in that era. But I feel grateful that that is part of my pop culture consciousness. And I'm wondering like if kids today, who are probably not listening to this podcast, but if like children in their teenage years like know the Brady Bunch references, or if that is just something that will get lost to the next generation.
I did watch the first movie, which obviously is not the show, but I watched the first movie, maybe both movies, in the last like 3 or 4 years when I was at my mom's house and my one niece was there and she watched it with me and she laughed and it brought me such joy because she at the time was like 14 and it was very pleasing because I was like, oh, she like gets it. Like she understands why it's funny and it like it's so stupid, but like it's smart. It's the movie is great. But I mean, the show in its original iteration, like I agree that it is like the movies are gay, but like the show, I don't know why is gay. It's like
super heteronormative, but like then it isn't.
But it's also like Robert Reed is gay. It's also like Florence Henderson is like doing a thing. She had perfect pitch according to Rodgers and Hammerstein. Like it's that. It's like the Eve Plumness. It's the Maureen McCormick. It's not the Susan Olsen. It's that like we all want to like fuck fucking
Christopher Knight.
We all want to have sex with Chris Knight. And at a time, Barry Sanders.
Barry Williams.
We all want to have sex with both of them. We do not want to have sex with them. The 2 youngest are the 2 most disgusting. And I say that, I don't know if it's with all due respect to Michael Lookinland, not due respect to Susan Olsen.
Homophobe Susan Olsen.
Yeah. But I want Maureen McCormick and Eve Plum on the show, lickety split.
100%. I agree. It was like going back and revisiting, I have to say, just like sidebar, the Ghost Town episode of the Brady Bunch with, I think it's like Jim Backus as like an old, like timey, like drunk ghost who's not a ghost,
ghost,
lives
right?
in the ghost town. is the reason why it was like very important for me to go to a ghost town in my adult life, in real life. And so Hannah planned this whole thing where we like got to see a ghost town, and I felt like I was living my Brady Bunch fantasy. But yes, folks, listeners, did you watch the Brady Bunch? Do you know it? Let us know if you're like a Brady Bunch fan or if it's like completely not part of your consciousness at all. If it isn't, maybe start with the Brady Bunch movie, which, as we've said, is a comedy classic. Gene Smart, Michael McKean,
Shelley Long,
Christine Taylor, Shelley Long, Gary Cole, RuPaul Charles. It's just like
Eric. What is Eric's name from the real world?
Eric Neese.
I think I say in this week's interview. Just this is a little bit of spoiler. I think I say his name. I say it like Niels because I like was reading it and then I listened back and I was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You know his name is Eric Neese, but I started to feel insecure about it seeing it spelled out.
I totally.
He
understand.
is a comic genius, as you know.
I know, we put him in that list. But maybe start with the Brady Bunch movie, because this is the reason, as young people, that we came to this week's guest for the podcast. That is, of course, the great character actress Alanna Ubach, who was just a total delight for us from beginning to end.
I'm just so glad that she is having a moment right now, if you will. She is on Euphoria, and she is on The Flight Attendant, which just came back. So, wow. Here we are. It's our season finale. We're here with somebody that I'm going to say was a dream guest on our list from the time that we began this podcast. So, wow. Buckle up, because you are in store for a treat.
You might know her from Euphoria,
The Flight Attendant,
Coco,
Clockwatchers,
Waiting,
Meet the Fockers,
Sister Act 2,
Beakman's World,
Bombshell,
Girlfriend's Guide to Divorce,
The Brady Bunch Movie,
and the Legally Blonde films.
Oh boy, are we ever here with actor, singer Alanna Ubach, who, audience, boasts an impressive 158 IMDb credits, second only to Beth Grant in our roster of You Might Know Her From guests. So Alanna Ubach, welcome to the show.
I know Beth Grant. I had the pleasure of working with her on Rango. She and I worked on Rango together, and we had so many wonderful lunches. She has such great stories. She's just a chock full of intel.
Yes, yes.
She really is.
All right, Alanna, we're going to dive right in. At the time of this recording, we're awaiting the highly anticipated season 2 premiere of The Flight Attendant. So what we know is that you're set to recur opposite this bevy of wonderful character actresses, including Sharon Stone, Cheryl Hines, and 2 former guests of this show, Margaret Cho and Shreya Aghdashloo. So apparently you're playing a flight attendant named Black Market Carol, who doesn't particularly like Kaylee Cuoco's Cassie. But what can you tease about the new season and your character? And how are they going to keep the insanely high stakes for season 2?
Well, it's interesting. Obviously, she's in a different place. Kaylee Cuoco's character is now sober. She's newly sober. And she is, she's leading sort of not exactly a double life. I'd say more of a triple life. And she uses my character to her advantage in order to attain information and help other people. I can't exactly tell you everything. Yeah. I'm not allowed,
it's
unfortunately. Fair. But it's really fun. And it is a blast to get paid to hate Kaylee Cuoco because she is quite affable in person. She's a doll. She and I originally worked together on a show called Brandy and Mr Whiskers when we were just kids. Brandy and Mr Whiskers was a Disney cartoon. I played this snake, and she was a bunny. And it was back in, the early 1800s when you were able to record all of the voiceover actors in one room, in one setting at one time, go through the entire script together. And that was a lot of fun. But gone are those days, right? It's really difficult to peg people down and to, work around everyone's schedule. So now voiceover work is very solitary, obviously. So it's very different. Right. But when I met Kaylee, we were able to have just a mitzvah on a weekly basis. That was a lot of fun. She's such a sweetheart.
We're very excited for you to be joining the Flight Attendant season 2, but I also need to just jump in here. In my current obsession, you currently star as Suze, Cassie and Lexi's boozy single mom on HBO's Euphoria. And in season 2, you really got to be a part of some very iconic scenes. You're part of Rue's pit stop where the bombshell reveal happens at your house. You get to be in the scene where Sydney Sweeney is puking in a hot tub. And you, of course, get to be a very effusive audience member watching while Ethan plays you in drag. And me, like everybody right now, is obsessed with Euphoria. And, you've said that in a lot of those high stakes scenes, the cast will actually improvise dialogue. So you're acting with this ensemble of like mostly young women who are very good.
Sure.
What is the dynamic like being sort of one of the few real adults on this very buzzy, hot show right now?
They're complete and total pros, but when I was their age, it's interesting. Most of my contemporaries, I always say this, we were cocky and we were know-it-alls and we were worldly. And there seems to be some kind of innocence that's preserved amongst I call them the new models, the new actors. There's an innocence to them, regardless of the fact that the internet raised them, that their parents are competing with Google and TikTok and Instagram and Instant Chat and, Instagramma or whatever you want to call it, but everything is Insta. And these are what the parents are competing with. But these new models of actors, they really, really have their wits together. They are so high functioning and responsible, and they're able to access their emotions at the drop of a hat, which is so impressive. When I was a kid, we didn't have creators like Sam Levinson who, trust young audiences and trust their intelligence and writes very smart content and content that leaves a rock in your shoes. And these actors really do know what they're doing. It's just such a privilege. I grew up watching shows like this. I had a real punk rock sister when I was a kid. She was 11 years older than me. So the movies that she would rent were the movies I watched, right? When she was babysitting me. And I remember renting movies like Christian F., that German film about the young heroin addict in Germany. She was maybe 16. It was 15, 16. And movies like Foxes, movies like Sid and Nancy, and, Over the Edge, and all of these, films about teenage rebellion or young rebellion. And they were sort of socio-political films that were meant to disturb. And me growing up in such I'd like to say, a very safe suburban setting, I was just taken by these worlds and I wanted to be a part of it one day. And so now I'm 103 and finally able to be a part of something like this. And it's very exciting. And the kids are incredible.
They're very good. And, I'm not really one to love like young actors, but I prefer like a character actor woman,
Sure. They're not sitcom actors. You know what I mean?
No.
These aren't kids that are just like, be robotic, make everyone laugh or else. It seems very fear-based behind a lot of the children, the child actors that I see. Everything is sort of fear-based, their choices and everything. It's like they don't have a choice to be bad. That's not an option. These kids are interesting.
I have to say, I watched the first season. I binged it all, I think, I don't know, who knows, sometime in the last, lockdown years. And I remember thinking during season 1, like, is that Alanna Ubach, like, drinking a glass of wine, watching reality TV? So can you tell us, like, how did you take this relatively supporting role from the first season and, like, build this extensive emotional life for the second season when you have more to do? Like, you're in more of these integral scenes.
Well, when I read the script, I was originally up for the role of Zendaya's mom. But Zendaya hadn't been cast yet. And then there was a rumor going around that Zendaya was about to be cast as the lead. And I thought, well, I couldn't possibly play her mother unless she was adopted. That's impossible, right? So I thought, well, I was so taken by the pilot. I loved the script. I thought it was so interesting and just so ballsy. And when I found out that it was actually based on the creator's life story, I was like, oh my gosh, I'll play a hot dog vendor in this. I'll do whatever. I thought, who is this lush mom? She just has a couple of lines here and there, but she's interesting. And she reminds me of a lot of the mothers I knew growing up as a teenager, the ones that we loved, but the ones that were sort of a little off kilter. But they were the ones that didn't have any rules, right? So I really gravitated toward her, and I've known Mary Vernew for years, the casting director, and I went in with a glass of wine in my hand and did the scene and booked it. And I kept telling everyone, my relatives, don't get up and go to the restroom while you're watching the show. You will miss me. But it seems like season 2, Sam writes what he writes, and it's a privilege to be in more and to be able to spend more days on a show that I love to be on. I love to work on. It's so much fun.
Was like the reality TV or like the Millionaire Matchmaker or whatever it is you're watching a lot of the time, like were those your like decisions? Were you like, how about this?
Millionaire Matchmaker was not, no. It was actually, I think that was rewritten the night before. Sam will rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. He keeps painting and painting and painting until the last possible minute. And then you're looking at the dialogue. You're like, oh my gosh. Oh, you made it so funny compared to what it was last night. She's watching Millionaire Match, but that's hysterical. What is Millionaire Matchmaker? And I went online and took a look at it. I was just like, oh, Suze. Oh, your taste. All right. The wonderful thing about Sam is that he sort of trusts us to block it on our own. He's like, what were you guys thinking? He's like, what were you thinking? Oh, that's really good. Just make sure you duck at this line because the camera's going to hit your head. He's very married to the DP. The DP, he's sort of like Bob Fosse. It's all about the shots. It's the setups. And everything was 35 millimeters. So it took a lot longer to set up each shot. And it gave us more time to sort of practice and rehearse the scene and figure out all the nuances and everything. And Sydney Sweeney is so much fun to act off of. Boy.
She has no business being as good as she is. It's really shocking.
She's her depth and her sensitivity. When you meet her, you know immediately there is nothing else she should be doing in the world besides. It's cool. It chose her.
Okay, Alanna, you've lent your vocal talents to tons of animated projects, like you said, Rango, Monsters at Work, Pound Puppies, Crossing Swords, but most memorably, you play Mama Imelda in the 2020 Disney Pixar film Coco. Of course, like for anyone who hasn't seen it, the film follows a 12-year-old boy who accidentally transports to the underworld, trying to change his family's view on music. But the movie's so good, and it made such a splash. And also, like, you can really fucking sing, which is kind of an incredible reveal. Coco's noted for being the first motion picture with a 9-figure budget to feature an all Latinx cast. Did you feel the significance of that cast and that story being such a mainstream hit at the time?
Well, going back to what we were talking about earlier, because voiceover work is so solitary now, you really don't understand how important it's going to be until you finally see it in its entirety the night of the premiere. And I had absolutely no idea what the movie was about when I auditioned. I thought she was at the DMV complaining that they didn't have her picture somewhere. I didn't understand what was going on. Oh, it's the afterlife. Oh, she's dead. Oh, now I understand. But I had gone in for a couple of recordings already at Pixar and had absolutely no idea what she looked like. And then they finally showed me a model and everything sort of came together. And there was an urgency to record everything right away because the little boy was just turning 12. So we were afraid his voice would change. Yeah. So everything was done very, very quickly. And I became pregnant while we were recording that. So it was a wonderful experience, to say the least.
It's so good. It's so good.
And it's Fort Knox. It's Pixar. So they're very careful about, I didn't have the entire script. I didn't exactly know what was going on. So they give me the scene ahead of time, and I'd have a couple of hours to look at it. And then I'd go in and I'd be there with Lee, who's right behind you, giving you, this is what's going on. This is where you're going. He's running away from you. Try to catch him. That was it. But I didn't get to meet any of the other actors until the night of the premiere.
Interesting. You actually performed your song La Llorona at the Hollywood Bowl.
Yeah.
How long have you been singing? Like, where did you learn to sing? And, like, would you come and do, like, a Broadway musical? Like, I know you done On the Town in Hollywood. Like, you've done theater in New York. But would you come and do, like, a big Broadway musical? Like, you have the chops.
Now I would. Because when I was a kid and everyone was going to New York and trying out for, my story is, it's a little odd. My father passed away when I was very young, very suddenly, and I was 19. And, as a Latina growing up in a Puerto Rican Mexican family, you stay with where the family is after a loss like that. And so I was planning on moving to New York and doing Broadway and off Broadway. And I was so excited to actually go and do that. But because I'm from Downey, California, and my father passed away when I was young, I dropped out of college. I just wanted to lose myself in work. There's no theater. There are no musicals going on in Los Angeles. And this is where I stayed. So it took me about 10 years to finally feel normal again after the loss of my dad. And it took the birth of my son for me to really be comfortable and say, yeah, I can go out to New York now and do my thing, and to give me that confidence that I needed. But, life happens. It's odd. Life just happens, and life sort of makes choices for you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there dream roles? Like, are there theater roles that you're interested in specifically?
Oh gosh, I remember being in my being in my late 20s and auditioning for these, ingenues and The Best Friend, and I thought, oh my gosh, when am I can't get old soon enough. Wait to be an old broad
Yes.
and be able to, audition or read for the role of August Osage County or, Mama Rose or any of those wonderful characters, because to me, being a sex symbol seemed so fleeting and weird and finite.
Yeah.
And all I knew was, I would see, performances by Cloris Leachman and say, that's what I want to do. Or Dana Hill, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
Quinn Cummings, Richard E. Grant, those people seemed to really have a grasp on what they wanted to do, and they weren't going anywhere. It just didn't seem like they were going anywhere. I couldn't think of anything else I'd want to do. But yes, I would like to go back to New York and delve into as much as I could possibly delve into. The thing about it is that now you're up against all of the people that were there in New York when you were out here in your 20s, and the people that have become established on stage. So it's always an uphill battle for me, always.
Pam Anderson is doing Chicago, so there's places for people from LA on Broadway.
Yeah, boy, I'd love to see that.
Yeah, we're
trying to go immediately. We'll let you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, Alanna, so because, although you appear in so many mega hits of the 90s and 2000s, which of course we're going to get to, you're also in one of my favorites of all time, the 97 indie comedy Clockwatchers, written and directed by Jill Sprecher, co-starring, of course, Toni Collette, Lisa Kudrow, and Parker Posey. I miss insane ensemble comedies like this from the 90s, where the emotional stakes are really high, but the story is really small and dark and weird. And to me, that movie's so emblematic of the 90s, sort of like Sundancey, independent cinema movement. Did that feel like a moment? And I feel like Clockwatchers has a secret fan base. And can you say, what is the average... what's the demographic of the average Clockwatchers fan who approaches you on the street?
It's interesting you say that. They just had a screening of Clockwatchers at LACMA not too long ago, and Jill Sprecher and I were there for the Q&A. There were very few masters of Clockwatchers, and they finally found this one company that was able to transpose it onto film for the big screen, and that's why they had that screening of it. I like to think of Clockwatchers as one of the very last non-corporate indie films.
Yes.
Before businessmen caught on to Sundance and thinking, oh, this Quentin Tarantino film that was filmed for nothing can make a lot of money. Or we can invest in this person or that person, this person. So, it's very interesting. And speaking of autobiographical, it was based on her life or her time working as a temp. When she was working there the first 2 weeks, things started disappearing. But it wasn't her. And people started looking at her really accusing, and they were accusing her constantly. She was like, no, wait a second, it's not me, it's someone else. And she thought, this is such a funny story, I have to write about it. And there you go. But it was a conversational film. It was European in that regard. And, those films cost nothing, and they were investments. Yeah, it is interesting that, gone are those films nowadays. Everything seems to be blowing up.
It holds up so well. It's streaming on Criterion right now, and it's so good. What was the ensemble like, the four of you? Because it's such a strong group of women. That group is so iconic.
Well, we were in this building for about a month. We were in this building every single day, well, except Saturdays and Sundays, for a month. And, by that time, Muriel's Wedding had come out. Friends was really hot on TV. Parker Posey was the indie darling. And I was just sort of like the potatoes, the fingerling potatoes on the side.
I love fingerlings.
And they were all kind of pairing up and being chummy with each other, because that's what celebrities do, And so I had befriended Jamie Kennedy.
Yes, he's the mail boy. Yes.
Yes, and he and I are still friends, and that was a lot of fun. But being in the same office every single day for a month, you start to believe you are a temp. You start to believe you are that character and start getting paranoid and everything. I think we started losing our minds by the end of it.
It's so good. For anybody that hasn't seen it, please go watch it. It is one of my favorites.
You appear in many touchstone films for our generation. Legally Blonde and its sequel, Renaissance Man, Meet the Fockers, Waiting, Sister Act 2. But for us, it's the Brady Bunch movie. And in fact, in between us, our friendship, we refer to it as a green flag film, meaning if someone else is like, also obsessed with the Brady Bunch movies, we're like, okay, you're our kind of person.
You're in our club. You're welcome.
You play Noreen, Marcia Brady's lesbian best friend, and you give an iconic performance. On paper, this movie sounds like such a dumb fucking premise, but it stars so many comedy legends and is executed to perfection. There's you, Christine Taylor, Shelley Long, Gary Cole, Michael McKean, Gene Smart, RuPaul, Eric Niles from The Real World. Were you like, wow, I'm in good company and this is a comedy classic? Or were you like, wow, this is super high concept and going to bomb, but thanks for the paycheck?
You know, I was 17. I was 17 years old. And even in Clockwatchers, this is a fun fact. There was a bar scene in Clockwatchers and I was 19. And so they had to figure out what to do. And they had to get this certain permit to allow me to be in the bar while we were filming that scene. I mean, that was the biggest reason why I wasn't really chummy with any of these women. They were older than me. I was a teenager still.
Wow. Okay.
I was 17 when I tried out for that. And I was doing this show off Broadway called Kindertransport. And it was about the Holocaust. And I played this little Jewish girl during World War II. And they gave me this page boy that was very popular back then, sort of the Anne Frank Bob. Yeah. And so when I walked in, they thought, what is this strange, antiquated looking teenager trying out for the Lesbian? So I think it appeared as though Noreen's mom was doing everything she could to make her look girly. But maybe I hid my real, my lesbian clothes in my backpack. And the moment she dropped me off, I'd tear off my little dress and put on my, my wife beater and my flannel and my little shorts. But I think that's probably what got me the job was my funny little Anne Frank hairdo.
Wow.
We just revisited the movie. It holds up so well. How did you come up with Doreen's little I love Marcia giggle laugh, which is really your thread throughout the entire movie?
You know what? I was on a science show called Beakman's World when I was
Of course. Very important to both of us.
And so doing that show really brings out the goofiness in you. That was like goof acting 101. I mean, it was sort of like my theater school in a way. I added a little bit of Josie in that character and it seemed to work. It's fun. So fun. It's so fun to be goofy like that and get paid.
Did you get to meet any of the OG Brady Bunch cast that had cameos in it? And if so, were they cool or not?
Betty Thomas had written another scene for me. And I was supposed to have a scene with Peter Brady, who is now older. What is his name?
Christopher Knight.
That's it. Christopher Knight and I were supposed to have a scene together. And then it got, I don't know, they didn't have time to shoot it that day or something. And then they called me. They were like, we don't need you that day. But I was about to meet him. I did not have a chance to meet anyone else besides Christine Taylor.
What about Davy Jones? Because he was in that prom scene. Did you see Davy Jones? Also, is Davy Jones your size? He's a small person.
He's no bigger than a minute. Now, Davy Jones and I did not meet. When they turn around and shot for Davy Jones, I believe that was an extra day, and I wasn't there. It was just the Punch Bowl scenes, and
we got 20 minutes on the Brady Bunch. Don't you worry.
Keep it coming.
But it's interesting that you talked about Noreen's costumes. Her costumes are reminiscent of Tai from Clueless. And we fact-checked this to see that if it was a joke, but we were like, oh, the Brady Bunch came out 5 months earlier than Clueless. But then we read that you were up for Tai. So does that mean were you and Brittany Murphy in the same audition room? Who else were you running in that circle with when you guys were auditioning?
When I was, I think, in New York, I originally tried out for Tai in New York. They were seeing people from coast to coast. So I was doing that play. And then I walked in and I met Amy Heckerling, and she read me for Tai. And then once I was out back in Los Angeles, they brought me back. And there was a very feminine quality to Brittany Murphy. And I did not have that. So I got the feedback that I was a little too street for Tai. They needed someone who wasn't as tough and streetwise. And they were like, there's something a little streetwise and masculine about Alanna. So we're going to go
interesting.
And hire Brittany Murphy. But when I met her, she's like this big bouquet of tulips. She kind of glowed. You knew she was going to be a star. Much more than just an actor. She was like a star,
I was just going to say, if you go back and watch that opening scene of yours, basically they dressed Tai like you are dressed in that opening scene. It is very bizarre.
Yeah, I'm sure all of the, the wardrobe stylists of that time were, it was all about mid 90s, right?
Yeah. Okay, Alanna Ubach, we've reached the part of the show that we like to call the rapid fire. It's rapid for us. It can be rapid for you, or if you need to take your time, please feel free to do so. It just allows us to get every last question in. Okay, Reese Witherspoon beats the shit out of you in the 1995 dark comedy crime film Freeway, and then later on you team up to kill the warden and the prison guard. Did that movie give you an easy rapport when you played one of Elle's best friends, Serena, in Legally Blonde 6 years later?
Well, I was up against one of the tallest side cast members I've ever been up against. I mean, she was this really beautiful, statuesque girl trying out for Serena, and I thought to myself, ooh, I'm gonna get this because Reese is tiny. I remember her from Freeway. We were little, and it was easy to set up the shot, right? It's really easy to set up the shot when you have two people around the same height. It's just easier. It doesn't
make sense.
Long. So, and Ty did everything. So I thought, ooh, I've got an in here.
Okay, so the story goes that Legally Blonde has this alternate lesbian ending where Elle and Vivian are sitting on a beach holding hands at the end. Both you and Jessica Caulfield have said this, but the screenwriters apparently refute it. Please set the record straight. Is there a lesbian cover-up happening?
Here's what happened. I was one of the last actors to be cast in the movie. So when the journalist asked me about it, I assumed it actually was the truth. But in fact, it was not. So there you go.
Got it.
They hired me like 2 days before they were actually shooting. So when the journalist asked me, was there a different ending of Reese holding hands and perhaps becoming a lesbian or something? I was like, yeah, probably. That's what happened.
I see.
Yeah, and I think Jessica Caulfield had heard a rumor while she was on set that there's going to be, you know what I mean, from probably a crew guy or something, and she thought it was the truth. Yeah, there's so much ridiculous legends. Legend has it, these funny little tales that are never
grains of truth.
Grains of truth, yes, absolutely.
There is a third Legally Blonde movie allegedly in production. Can you tell us anything here?
This is what I know. Mindy Kaling was hired to write Legally Blonde 3, and I guess they're going over whatever they're going over. I have no idea what the storyline is. I don't know anything about it, but I'm assuming that Reese and Mindy Kaling are going back and forth with notes, etc. The one thing about Reese Witherspoon's celebrity is it is very difficult for someone like her to take 2 months off to do something like this. She is like the president. I mean, it's really hard to just, like, are you available from November to January of 2024? Well, let me see. I'm on this Apple show, and then I'm producing this, and then I'm doing this. And she's bigger than the movie now.
Okay, somehow you got cast as Ben Stiller's former babysitter in Meet the Fockers, where they patted your body and put some gray in your hair to age you up since you are 10 years younger than him. What the hell is wrong with this industry? And how was Barbara Streisand on set? She had just come out of retirement.
She's the sweetest thing in the world. She had a little thermos, and I think there was soup in there.
Oh.
So adorable. She's a booby. She's a booby. Yeah. Know what I mean?
Yeah.
So by the time I got to meet her, she was not exactly, 1960s, 1970s diva with the Egyptian eyeliner. No, she was no longer Babs. She was a booby. She was Bubby Babs. So cozy, like extra cozy.
Oh, I love that.
Like, where are the house slippers? Where are the house curlers? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's probably very warm thighs in the morning that you can snuggle up to. She was just very cozy. That was a fun, interesting audition. I was very sick. And so my voice was a lot, it was very gravelly. And I walked in and I did my Aunt Flora, my Tia Flora, and I got hired. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. That was such a bucket list for me because you got to, you get to meet all of these amazing, legendary actors at once. That was great. And they're all so sweet.
Speaking of greats, you, of course, were directed by the late, great Penny Marshall, opposite Danny DeVito in Renaissance Man. We love her so much. Do you have a Penny impression in your back pocket? I feel like you might.
We were at the Tiger Stadium filming just in this one section at the Tiger Stadium, and we're watching the game, and I'm with Danny DeVito, and he's eating popcorn, and she's sick. I'm really in the mood for a hot dog. You guys want a hot dog? I want a hot dog for breakfast. And they brought her a hot dog, and she was sitting there having like 3 hot dogs while directing us during that scene. She was so broad. And then I ended up working with her on See Dad Run. See Dad Run was a sitcom I did with Scott Baio, who played my husband. And we had 3 kids on the show.
How the fuck did we miss this? Oh my God, this would have been in the meat. We would have had 20 minutes on it.
Okay if you missed it. It's okay if you fucking missed it. I'll leave it at that.
Got it.
Anyway, she had a guest star on that. She was a guest star on that show. And I guess she improvised this line. She was just so clever. She knew comedy. All of the little kids were running around her, and she looks at me. She was like, "Why don't you go and have some more kids?" Huh? And of course, they kept that in on the show. And she's just, there are some people that it's just so comedy is so cellular. She's like a Mel Brooks. She's a Reiner. Yeah. She's just one of those.
You play Lisa Edelstein's fire engine red-haired sidekick Joe Hernandez Frumkus on The Girlfriend's Guide to Divorce, essentially replacing Janine Garofalo, who was like in the first few episodes. You also played Josie, assistant to the wacky scientist Beakman on the first season of the Saturday morning science show Beakman's World. Who do you prefer playing sidekick to, Lisa or Beakman? Who was the better person to be a hench person for?
They were both great because I was 15 when I was acting with Paul Zaloom. And, I was in my 30s when I was acting with Lisa Edelstein. Very, very apples and oranges, for God's sake.
I was obsessed with you in The Girlfriend's Guide to Divorce. I thought you were very good.
I ran into her at Retta. Retta just had a birthday party, and so we saw each other there. It was great. I really had a good time with those girls. Oh, my gosh, they were fun. We filmed that up in Vancouver, and, some of the cast members had like a boyfriend each week flown up from Los Angeles. Alanna, pretend this one's the only one. What's his name again? David, come here. You're all she talks about. You are everything to her. Am I? Gosh, because I'm a little nervous. These girls, they were like guys. It was the coolest thing ever to work on. We had such
That's amazing.
Wow. Okay, I'm into that.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, you played Janine Pirro in Bombshell, where there were a lot of facial prosthetics happening in that movie. Please, dear God, tell us, did you get to use like fake teeth or nose clips? Like what was happening and how they transformed you into Janine Pirro?
Well, I wasn't lucky enough to have that makeup artist who had 7.5 prosthetics on one side of Charlize Theron's face.
That's
and
insane.
Then 7.5 on the other side. And by the time I got there, she was almost finished with everything. So by the time I got there, she was already they were already putting on glam makeup on her. So the prosthetics were already finished, but they did give me brown contacts and, obviously a rinse and I had a spray tan and that was just, it was wild. I did not know who Janine Pirro was until I auditioned. I thought, okay, who's this Janine Pirro character? Is she fictitious? Oh my gosh, she's a personality. Oh, I can play her. Yeah, I could see myself looking like her. Okay, let's see this. And so much fun playing her. And I still have yet to meet her.
You're often described as like a chameleon. So like, have you had the experience of working, like, what do you prefer? Like wigs, accents, teeth, like prosthetic humps? What is your jam in terms of character work?
In terms of character, it's how does this character add a little life or zest to the film? Are they all about the love? Are they the protagonist? Are they the obstacle or whatever? And it's, I just look at what have people not seen on screen and what's going to be boring. It's just, if it's not boring, I'll take it. But if it's something that everyone has seen before, I'm like, wah, wah. Yeah. This doesn't turn me on. But what does turn me on are, characters that people haven't seen before.
Well, speaking of, you play Naomi, the disgruntled waitress who thinks she works harder than everybody else in the cult favorites Waiting and its sequel, It's Still Waiting. Listen, I worked at Chili's through college with a woman named Nicole. She said that everyone was working for beer money and she was working to help pay her mom's mortgage. And I was like, wow, that's Naomi. down to a T, complete with like the smoke break and the neck crack. Like, did you work in casual chain restaurants? How did you capture the essence of this person so hard?
Rob McKittrick, the writer, the director, Rob McKittrick, I called him and we talked about the character and I said, okay, I have a whole backstory for her. What about, like, she lives with her grandmother who's super sick and ailing rapidly, and she is just working as hard as she can, paying for the hospital bills, and everything's coming out of her pocket, and her parents died when she was young, and she's taking care of her grandmother, and that's why she drinks. That is why she drinks. The only time she's happy is when she's wasted. And he was like, yeah, that's great. Okay, I'll see you in New Orleans. You know, that was the cast. They were so lovely. I was such a big fan of Anna Faris when she came on. I knew her from Mayo, from the movie Mayo, and she was kind of an indie chick at that time, and I was very nervous around her. That's all I really remember about that film. And it was pre-Katrina, so when Katrina hit, that entire restaurant, that location was destroyed. And so when they wanted to do part 2, they had to move it to Los Angeles and do like redesign the entire Bennigan's.
Do you get good service? Like if you go into a chain restaurant, are people like, oh yeah, let's give her the full treatment?
Heat
is all around.
The kids are like 17, 16, 15. They don't recognize me. I don't get recognized when I go out, ever.
Really?
Did we go to high school together? Or are you the aunt of? Or did we, it's one of those things.
Okay.
I bet right now if you went to Chili's in Montgomeryville, Pennsylvania, and Nicole would still be there and she would give you the works.
There you go. Okay. So, yeah, I was going to say, Damien, do you get recognized when you walk into a Chili's? Are you known?
No, I did go there once after I worked there, and it was weird. I was like, no one's expecting. I was a star there, No one remembered. No one remembered. Okay, it's our last question, and it's really important. I don't know if you're going to see this one coming. We love Adrian Zmed, and it turns out you do too. You have 10 seconds. Tell us why Grease 2 is better than the original Grease.
I'll tell you why. Come on, everybody, gather round. I'm going to show you how to knock them down. When I'm on the ball, I'm your number one. And I'm going to show you how it's done. That was Adrian Smed's part in Let's Bowl. Oh my God. We're going to score tonight. I loved that movie. It was so sort of ahead of its time because no one was interested in musicals in the 80s. They were interested in Scarface. And so I think I've seen that movie like 78 times. I know all of the dialogue. I thought Michelle Pfeiffer was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. She looks like baby's breath. She really and Adrian Zmed was like this little beefy, buff, tough.
Oh, he's so like lithe and beefy. Yeah. The same.
All that hair. Yeah, he was hot. And I was madly in love with him when I was a little girl. I was like, if I grow up, I want to be in a television show with Adrian Zmed.
Have you ever met him?
No.
Well,
we have to make this happen.
We just interviewed Marissa Jarrett Winokur, and she said like they are tight, and because we were like making a bit about Adrian Zmed, and she's like, he's amazing, he's one of my best friends, and I was like, oh my God, so you got to meet him.
Oh, I made out with her just to get closer to him.
Yeah, it's necessary.
Alanna Ubach, this has been a total wild ride. Thank you so much for being on the show with us.
Thank you so much. This was a pleasure. So much fun.
Can you believe that the thread of Adrian Zmed, wow, it rhymes, has been woven throughout this season? I mean, Lauren Weedman, Marissa Jarrett Winokur, and now the great Alanna Ubach all have love for the man that we have love for, and that's, of course, she was like, his little body is tight and taut, greasy. Oh, Adrian Zmed is somebody for us.
Did I ever tell you that I saw Adrian Zmed in Grease? I'm sure I've told you this before.
Yeah.
But I saw him not in that 90s Broadway revival, which is a regret that I didn't see it. I mean, I don't know that I had a lot of independence at that point because I was like 12 or 10. But I did see him in a regional production play Teen Angel. And I was still hot for him. I feel like he was old then. He's still alive. I feel like he was old then. That was like 20 years ago. It was like, or maybe it was like, what did we get?
No, it was like 30 years ago.
No. I saw him right before I moved back to New York. So that's like 2008. Okay. That's a long time though, still.
My memory is that I saw him in the national tour in St. Louis, and he was Danny in like 1996.
Well, that makes right. Yeah,
like,
that makes sense.
Is that my memory?
He was on tour with Marissa, so you're right. They met on that tour,
but as Danny, not as Teen Angel.
No, that's right. Saying. Yeah, I saw him as Teen Angel in like 2009, and it was like I'd still suck him off, but you know, like
Marissa let him know.
That was so cool when Marissa was like, I went to his apartment that he shared with his wife, who was Susan Wood, who is an actor who played Sandy in Grease. Very cool. Anyway, Alanna Ubach, the fact that she loves Grease 2 just as much as we love Grease 2. I'm obsessed with Grease 2. I think it is really such an underrated gem. Also, Pamela Adlon is in it. I could go on about Grease 2 forever.
We have to get Lorna Luft. If you think we haven't been trying, you're wrong. Like, it's just we've been trying to get everybody from Grease 2, but Lorna, come on, take our calls.
It is a season finale. Should we reveal things like that? Like that time we had Lorna Luft on the books and then it just like didn't happen. We love you, Lorna. It's going to happen one day. We
will keep asking your people until they send a cease and desist.
We are nothing if not persistent.
Yeah, who told you were persistent? Sandra Lee!
Yeah, Sandra Lee told me I was persistent, and Denny Dillon said that she appreciated my tenacity. And I said, thank you. Tell the boys on Bumble that.
Oh my God. Oh, folks, we hope that you loved this episode. It was very near and dear to our hearts. Like, as we were reading the You Might Know Her From's off, I was like, good Lord, she has like the series of credits that are just formative for my teenage years, you know, and like now aging up with her has been a real pleasure watching her, as you say, have a moment. And hello, the woman can sing. Let's bring her back to Broadway. Let's do this.
One of the things I loved was Alanna talking about, like, wanting to play the roles, like, being like, I want to be 50 so I can be playing these roles. I feel like that was something that there's a part of me that related to that. I think there was a part of my, like, young personhood that was, like, annoyed by that as a kid. I, like, don't think I was like, not excited. I was like, what do you do in the interim? But I, like, loved that she was a child actor, you know, a young person who was an actor who was sort of like waiting for the opportunity, ironically, for that opportunity to suddenly. And I feel like now I like didn't even really connect it until we were talking to her in the moment where I was like, she's having this moment playing Lexi and Cassie's mom on Euphoria, but then she's also now on The Flight Attendant, which are like these two huge buzzy shows. And she was just in Coco playing like the grandmother, like awesome. But it didn't really connect until now, like when she was talking about that, like, oh, of course.
She's like coming into her own, and now the roles will hopefully like keep coming where she's getting to bite off a little bit more.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm just like so thrilled to watch a character actor like kind of get the opportunity to finally like get to play all of the roles that they were made to play.
Yeah. Dear darlings, thank you so much for all of your support for these 4 seasons. It sounds like I'm ringing the death knell, but I'm not. We're coming back for season 5 in the fall. Don't you worry. And as I said, we're going to be dropping episodes throughout the summer. So be on the lookout for those. You know where to find us. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Share with your friends. If you haven't, you know, the thing that will help us the most is leaving that 5-star review on the Apple Podcast app. If you've already done it, thank you so much for taking the time to do it. If you haven't, if your friend hasn't, but you know they listen to the podcast, encourage them to do the same. Thank you so much.
Yeah, if you've never left a review and you want us to know that you're just doing it now, give us the Brady Bunch. Just write Brady Bunch. Write Cindy. Write Alice. Write your favorite person in the blocks. Or it could be Oliver. Or it could be Sam the Butcher. Don't put Tiger. That's such a cheap way out.
I agree. It's a cheap joke. I will never forget the person that just wrote, Zan, Nan, Ian, we love you.
We love you. We love you. Oh, folks, if you love us, if you love Zan, Nan, and Ian, please follow us on social media. Make sure you're plugged in, following us. Like Anne mentioned at the beginning of this episode, we will be dropping some surprise gems for you over the next few months. So you want to make sure that you are following us on social media, and you can find me at Damian Bellino on all of the things. And you can find my beautiful, blue-eyed, COVID, cough, fog-brained, beautiful best friend at Rodaman on all of the things, and it is spelled as Rodemanne.
Thank you for that. That's going to be my biography if I ever write a book. What did you call me? COVID brained, brain fogged. Thank you. You Might Know Her From is produced by us. That's Damian Bellino, my Italian-American best friend, who is sipping his coffee right now. Did you know, folks, that Damian puts a sprinkle of cinnamon into his coffee grounds before he brews? That's his jam. We want to thank, as always, our consultants at Grumpy Entertainment, who are the people that keep this train chugging right along. We're so grateful for all of their love and support and kindness throughout these 4 seasons. That's, of course, Jason Jude Hill and Daniel Sears. Thank you both. We love you. And all of the editing that you hear on each and every episode of You Might Know Her From is courtesy of our brilliant editor, Daniel Sears.
Special thanks to Gang. All of that music that you hear underscoring each and every episode of You Might Know Her From is by the brilliant Gang. Gang is 3/4 women. Gang is from Philadelphia. We love Gang, and you can download and stream Gang wherever you listen to your music.
And if you need to see a picture of Bruce Bibby, a.k.a. Ted Casablanca, because you need to refresh your memory, guess what? You're going to find it in those show notes, which I put in each and every episode description. It's where we catalog all the bullshit that we talk about for 4 seasons so that we can easily reference the time that we mentioned Jerry Blank in season 2. It's easy to find, folks. Go explore those show notes. There's lots of gems to be had.
He's hot.
Who?
Bruce Bibby.
Oh, he's really hot. Like, he was like a hot, blonde, muscly guy. I was like into his whole vibe.
I don't think I recognized that he was hot, probably because he was gay. I don't think I recognized that he was hot when we were young. Ted, you're so hot.
We love you, Ted.